Question is, do I think Kanye is dropping this time? Is the Kanye record actually going to come out? I am enthused to believe that, yes, it is actually going to come out. And the reason for that being, people have actually heard this record. Kanye's actually had a listening party for this record. To my knowledge, I don't think anybody's heard, freaking, I'm trying to think of that one record that he had that was like, it had almost like a video game title to it. But if you're a hardcore Kanye fan, you know which one I'm talking about, and it'll most likely turn up in the comments in a second. It'll most likely turn up in the chat in a second. But to my knowledge, nobody's heard that record. If somebody has, they certainly haven't. Turbo, exactly. Grax 16 or whatever it was. People, to my knowledge, have not heard that record. And if people have, they haven't said anything. Now, we've been seeing some voices in the industry, talking about having heard this new LP. And look, by no means is any of this shit organic. Okay. They've definitely had this, situation, this party, this soiree, this listening, event. Or Kanye has exposed this record to certain people with the knowledge that they would go out and share the information that it's coming out, that it's going to be. I don't think Kanye is just showing this record to people for them not to plant the seeds of expectation for this album. Kanye very carefully, or at least very purposefully, sometimes chaotically, but always purposefully rolls out his records so that people are expecting it and, have at least maybe a vague idea of what direction he may be kind of going in. Maybe we're a little in the dark on this one so far, but I don't know if Kanye, I doubt, and I could be wrong here, I doubt the record is going to be out immediately. We may get another week of kind of preview or information or teasing, before the record is finally here. Again, I could be wrong on that. I get the sense that the record is going to be out this month, and I guess if that is going to be the case, we have, one more weekend to go. He could drop it on the 30th, but I mean, that's essentially the end of July at that point. And it could come out at the very end of July too. But, I don't think Kanye is going to, necessarily rush it out without teasing at least a little bit more. Could be teased a little bit more. I think we could be teased just a tad bit more for this new LP. But I think by virtue of the fact that he's sharing it, he's exposing it to people and people are talking about it, industry people who he knows closely, or people who, are in a position of influence. He's showing it to those types of people. I think by virtue of that, the record exists and the record is probably being planned pretty carefully or, very purposefully for a release. So again, by virtue of that, I think the album is going to come out. Now, just because he's showing it to people doesn't mean it's not a mess. Just because he's showing it to people doesn't mean it's going to be great. But I think if Kanye were not confident or Kanye-fident in this in this LP, I don't think he'd be showing it to those types of people. I don't think we'd be having this kind of chatter around the record. I don't think we would. Did we get this close? Did we get this close? And did we get this kind of chatter with Yandhi? Now, granted, there was a lot of talk of Yandhi. Kanye, released cover art for Yandhi, and there was feasibly a release date for Yandhi. You know what I mean? But I don't know if and we had an idea as to what records, what songs were on Yandhi, and we had an idea as to what features were on Yandhi, but I don't know if we had any sort of listening parties or events for Yandhi or anything like that. The fact that Kanye has pulled that sort of thing together for this release, I think says a little bit more. Kanye, if you guys remember, had some public events and stuff, especially for Ye, when he was in the midst of that very chaotic short album series that he was in the middle of, over at the little compound that he has going on out there. And, I think the fact that he's kind of put together almost a similar kind of thing for this new project definitely says something. So I can't confidently say that the record is going to be out this weekend, but I think it's going to drop this month. That's what I'm hearing. Those are sort of like the general sort of expectations that I'm having around the LP, or that I'm hearing around the LP. So by virtue of those things, I think the record's definitely going to show face, and it'll be what it's going to be when it comes out. I guess we will see. Look, with Kanye, I don't know what the record thematically is going to sound like, because he's not like leaning into the Christ stuff as publicly, like with the the freaking choir, the Sunday service stuff, but he's being sued by some Sunday service people. So maybe that has something to do with that. Maybe if he wasn't being sued by the Sunday service people, and maybe if, life for him, maybe personally, wasn't so chaotic at the moment, maybe we'd be seeing some more Sunday service stuff. But as of right now, we haven't been seeing a lot of Sunday service stuff. I don't get the sense that Kanye cares that it's a pandemic. So I think if Kanye wanted to have like some big public gathering around something, he probably would have it or do it. I don't know. Kanye doesn't strike me as somebody who puts much faith in health and medicine and the healthcare system. Kanye doesn't really strike me as someone who puts a lot of faith into a lot of things material. I think Kanye is mostly just like in his own mind. And, as of late has been very deeply into this religious, tip where his faith is in God, or whatever his interpretation of what God is and what God wants. And I think that's where his mind is. I think that, was certainly indicated in his very weird "I'm running for president" speech. And I feel like you don't really need to look much further than that to understand where his head is at least during that point in time. Right now, I have no information or idea as to whether or not he's transitioned out of that. As far as I know or understand, maybe he's still like very deeply into this very religious phase. And I think part of the reason that Yandhi got shelved is philosophically, I feel like a lot of what was being said on that album, or at least like attitude wise, was at odds with the religious shift that he was attempting to make there. Because, we did see some discussions or commotion around some tracks from that record being repurposed or changed or shifted or altered in some way, but they would have been sort of almost like revamped to make more sense within this Christian message and ethos and aesthetic that Kanye was going for. And maybe his attempts at doing that, just if there were any attempts even made, just didn't come to fruition or didn't make any sense. So I think that's ultimately why Yandhi got shelved, if I'm being honest. Thinking about everything that happened around that point, all of his social media posts, his own commentary on Yandhi coming out, and the tracks on Yandhi, and what we know of sort of like his deeper evolution into Christian ideals, or his own version or interpretation of that. I think Yandhi ended up getting shelved because it didn't represent, what he wanted in terms of like a more Christ-like message delivery, whatever. Because I think, what Christianity and Christ means for Kanye is a very individualistic and very specific, a very him-centric interpretation of Christianity. So, I think that's why Yandhi ended up getting shelved. And I don't have any reason to believe that he won't still be in that mindset for Donda. I don't have any reason to believe that he won't still be in that mindset. Maybe the themes of the record will, given that it's titled after his mother, will run a little bit more personal, but I think Kanye is still in this very deeply religious phase. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mwah. I think Kanye is still very deeply in this religious phase. That doesn't mean he can't focus on or address other things, but I think at least in the background, that's going to be kind of guiding what is and what is not, making it onto this new record. I don't want to say unfortunately. I just think the record, it'll be what it's going to be. It'll be good or it'll be bad, and maybe the Christian ethos of Kanye at this point will guide it in a good direction. Maybe it'll guide it in a not so great direction. And, Jesus King's faults, I can't even really personally attribute to Kanye's religious shift. I think his sporadicness, his inconsistentness, and a lot of his mental health struggles are mostly what made that album the struggle that it is, or made that album as flawed as it is. As I said in my review, personally, I would be interested to hear an album that is a Christian album or a faithful record from Kanye that just made a little bit more sense and kind of dove into his religious philosophy a little bit deeply, or a little bit more deeply and just in more detail, so that I guess his outlook on this subject matter just is clearer, and I guess easier to understand. Whereas right now I feel like Jesus is King, it just kind of comes out in bits and pieces because of just how sporadic Kanye was during that time and how chaotic so many things were for him around that time mentally and emotionally. I guess for this new record, what I'm really hoping for is that Kanye has reached a point of stability. I hope Kanye has reached a point of stability so that no matter what we're getting on this record it's consistent, it's focused, and it's pushing Kanye in a new direction. It's pushing things in a new direction. And that, I think, is really all I could hope for this album. Kinds of instrumentals it could have, kinds of topics and issues and themes it could address. I think in terms of those things, this album could go in dozens of different directions, and it would be good. Ultimately, I think it's going to be the execution that makes or breaks this LP, because execution is what, in my opinion, Jesus is King severely lacked. And, I think it's, again, that volatility in Kanye's mind and personal life and emotional state that kind of led to it being that way. But Kanye's undergone a lot of changes as of late, personally, lifestyle-wise, family-wise, obviously. And, we have had a long period of relative quiet from Kanye at this point and with this record. So maybe he's a little bit more in control and he's playing it from more of a cerebral standpoint, hopefully, possibly. So those are my expectations. Those are my hopes. Those are, some of the things I'm kind of crossing my fingers for this new record for sure. Thank you very much for watching this clip on TND Streams. To see more, subscribe to the channel and also click on the video link next to my head. Also, make sure to check out our other YouTube channels linked down below to see everything else we do week to week. And yeah, that's it. Anthony Fantano, forever.